Mark Holcomb is one of the leading creative voices in the modern metal scene, known for his playing style that incorporates unique chords and a lot of movement. Here are 8 of Mark's ideas to unlock your creative potential and combat writer's block. Number 1, experiment with alternate tunings.
If you ever hit a wall, I hit walls all the time, I get in ruts, but the important thing is knowing how to get out of them. And I know for me, one of the easiest ways is just try writing in a different tuning.
There are countless existing tunings that you can experiment with, or you can always make up your own. A great way to start inventing these tunings is to find a chord that you like the sound of and tune your individual strings to the individual notes of the chord. Alternate tunings are so powerful because they allow us to break old habits. As guitar players, we have a tendency to fall back on our own set of familiar moves. While these moves are part of our creative voice and sound, they can often take over and lead to every idea that we write sounding too similar. Alternate tunings can flip this on its head. Since the strings are tuned at different intervals, old scale shapes and chords aren't quite as reliable and often sound downright bad. This forces you to write with your ears leading rather than your hands. Number 2, have writing partners. Having a second or third set of ears to bounce ideas off of is one of the best ways to develop your material. And when you hit a creative slump, to keep your sanity.
Try your best to be around people that inspire you, because that ultimately is what picks you up when you are feeling terrible. I go through mornings and these tough days where I'm just like, damn, I can't play guitar today. I need something to help, something to pick me up. And the thing that always does it is being around somebody who can impart some sense of inspiration or motivation.
When each member plays off of each other and follows the thread of the music, you gain momentum. And before you know it, you have an idea sitting in front of you that's better than the sum of its parts.
If you're in a band with people who don't inspire you on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, that's a problem. I always want to feel inspired by the people around me. And that inspiration breeds trust because I'm sort of pulled along with their creative momentum. And it goes back to trust. Like, here's a good litmus test. If you're in a band with somebody and they don't like an idea that you've just spent like 2 nights in a row working on, like you've been slamming Monsters and Red Bulls and you've been up till 4 a.m. and you email him the idea after those 2 late night sessions and he's just like, yeah, man, I'm not feeling it. What would you do? You would cry? Yeah. I have. But again, that's what defines trust, is the ability to be like, oh man, really? You don't like it? And they say, yeah, it's not doing it for me. Then you're like, all right, well, what can we do? Like, what can we change about it? What can we do to make it fit? And then you establish a dialogue. And that conversation needs to happen. If you're the type of person to be like, you know what, dude, I'm not having that conversation. And I've been there before. That's the number one way to sabotage your project.
Without having absolute trust, there's no point having writing partners. Remember that trust and communication are the 2 core pillars of any long-term, healthy project. Number 3, if an idea isn't working, put it away and move on. It's better to cut your losses early and transfer your writing momentum into another idea than get frustrated and stop the session when the first idea is going nowhere. Always save your ideas. Even if you think they suck, if you revisit them later on by yourself or with the second set of ears, they might inspire something that's way better than you ever could have imagined.
And I'm serious, there are hundreds of periphery song ideas that have never seen the light of day because we can't get it to work. That loses the flow. It's the most important thing.
Just give your ideas some space, whether it's 2 days or 6 months. You can come in with a different perspective and breathe new life into an otherwise mediocre or stale piece. Number 4, limitations inspire creativity. So start with a basic foundation and build.
If you're having trouble writing a part that sounds notey, you want the intent of the part to be technical. You want the intent of the part to be notey, to be riffy. Try writing a chord progression first. And try using each chord as sort of markers. So you're not just aimlessly writing, you're not just writing with no direction. You know where you're going to end up.
A one-dimensional chord progression can turn into a unique sounding idea with a few simple changes. You can add notes to your chords or swap out the notes for less obvious intervals. You can add arpeggiation to add movement without changing the sound. And you can add a lot of depth to an otherwise bland sounding riff by changing out individual notes for chords.
I've always tried to inject bigger chords into my playing, as opposed to just riffing all the time, which can kind of sound, predictable. In a metal context, I'm always trying to inject chords in places where you wouldn't normally think they'd pop up.
Remember to use the chord progression to your advantage. If your ear is leading you towards a specific note in the progression, think about creative ways of how to get to it and which octaves you want to use. This is a great way to spice up an idea and add movement to your parts.
If you can notice one pattern about a lot of my playing, lots of slides and movement just to give it that sense of mobility.
Number 5, writing interesting chords from scratch. Mark is known for his use of chords extensively throughout his music. Part of what makes these chords stand out so much is that he uses different inversions from everyone else. Mark builds his chords from scratch, or from the ground up, to fit the parts that he's writing. To do this yourself, whether you're spicing up a basic progression or just starting from zero, Find the root note of the chord, and then from there, go to the next string and experiment with the different notes until you find one that you like. Then you just repeat the process until you've built out a full chord.
You may ask yourself, like, how do we go about building chords if we don't know theory? Because I've never heard these chords before. You know, like these chords were kind of constructed on the spot when we were writing. And again, for us, it's really just about, okay, finding a root note. Like what's comfortable, like what sounds good. And then where do you go with the rest of the chords? So picking out note by note. What sounds good? What satisfies the intent of the part that you have in mind? It's all about the intent.
To tie back to the benefits of alternate tuning, you'd be able to build chords that would be significantly more difficult in standard tuning. This is a great way to differentiate your sound because you're building your own chords in your own tuning, rather than the same chords in the same tuning as everyone else. Number 6. Flow is crucial. Flow is important both when you're writing music, when time flies by and the ideas pour in, and musically, where each idea is congruent and transitions smoothly from one to the next.
We are almost too sensitive to flow, the idea of parts needing to flow seamlessly into the other, not really shaking you or jarring you in any given moment. Sometimes we do it as sort of a novelty or as an effect, but for us, we hold that idea of flow almost as sacred.
Harsh transitions should be avoided if you want your music to sound fluid. You should never force two ideas together. If they work, and if they don't, they don't. That's okay. You can always write another part. There's no sense in taking two great ideas and diminishing their value by forcing them together when they don't belong.
And for us, the minute something doesn't flow, doesn't have that sort of organic momentum pushing the song forward, then it stops working. And then we go to work. And if we can't fix it, then it's not a song.
An important part in achieving flow when writing is being in the right frame of mind. Mark recommends getting into the best headspace before you sit down to write.
Your creativity goes hand in hand with your mental health. There's no sense in working on music when you are pissed off and like you're banging your head against the wall.
Number 7, finding your own voice is paramount. There's always going to be someone out there that plays faster than you and that's been practicing for longer than you. What's important is that you don't get too caught up in that. Realize that you have something to bring to the conversation as well.
And this is the problem with social media too, man. I'll hear a player like Rick Graham, like Matias Sasato, or Wes Hauck or somebody like that. I'll hear them play and I'll be like, oh my God, why do I even try? Like, why do I post my little crappy Instagram videos of me playing a clean delay riff when like you scroll down 2 videos and you see Rick Graham just like blazing? That's me at my worst. Me at my best realizes that I have something I think different to offer that's not trying to be that.
Unless your sole concern is being the fastest player alive, try and focus on the aspects of your playing that sound the most like you. If you stray too far from your goals or focus on technique purely for the sake of it, you risk burnout and may even lose passion for the instrument.
I almost quit guitar because I didn't feel like I had a voice of my own. Everything I wrote sounded like somebody else. But I started to focus on the aspects of the instrument that I felt I was particularly decent at. And more importantly, the things I liked most. I wanted to focus on things that I could call my own. The most important thing is finding your own voice and finding the things you like about it the most.
Another way to develop your own voice is to learn the riffs and solos of your favorite artists. It might sound counterintuitive to focus on someone else's style rather than your own, but if you steal from enough players, you'll start to realize the type of player you want to be based on the things that you take from them. You'll be able to steal the aspects of their playing that you like and leave the ones that you don't.
Like, I started playing in 1995, and every sort of era of my playing was based around trying to emulate somebody or some style. And without these eras, I wouldn't be who I am. So I'm supremely thankful for being this sort of copycat, so to speak.
Number 8, leave your comfort zone for a while. Exposing yourself to a lot of music and learning to trust your ear should be the backbone of your songwriting. It's your reference for what sounds good and bad to you.
We all just kind of learned by hearing music that we liked and just spending time with the music. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer. Just use your ear, man. Just trust your ear. It's like kind of a bullshit answer, but it really is all about exposure to music.
Venture beyond your comfort zone. If you start to pull inspiration from different genres, not just your primary one that you listen to, you'll realize it's an untapped goldmine of inspiration. Experimenting with different tones and effects, or learning new techniques, or even songs from polar opposite genres is a great way to rekindle your inspiration. Whatever brings you your next idea, that's what's important. Now that you've unlocked your creative potential, check out this video here of how to master the guitar with Guthrie Govan.